I walked into the house, expecting it to be just another dull evening. But everything changed when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of my husband's voice coming from the living room. But there was something else, something I didn't expect. A woman's laugh. It sounded too familiar. As I took a step closer, I realized the woman wasn't just anyone, it was my sister. My own flesh and blood, the one I trusted the most. My world came crashing down. How long had they been doing this? How deep did the betrayal run? The truth is, what I saw that day changed everything. I wasn't going to let this slide. The man I loved and the sister I trusted, both of them had crossed a line that would never be uncrossed. It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday. I woke up like I always do, groggy, but ready to face another day. Mike, my husband, had already left for work by the time I opened my eyes. That wasn't unusual. He was always the early riser. He'd kiss me goodbye, a quick peck on the cheek, and told me he'd be home late. He was busy with meetings, he said. It was the same excuse I'd heard every day for weeks now. But something about today felt different. I pushed those thoughts aside as I got up and started my usual routine. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that made everything feel like it was standing still, waiting. It was peaceful, and for a moment, I let myself enjoy the calm. I didn't know it yet, but that calm was just the eye of the storm. Mike and I hadn't been close lately. Little things kept slipping through the cracks: his lack of interest in our evenings together, the way he'd come home late and tired, and how he always seemed so distant, even when we were in the same room. I noticed his phone buzzing more than usual, but every time I glanced at it, he quickly picked it up and turned it face down. It was almost like he didn't want me to know who was trying to reach him. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself it was just stress from work, that he was tired, that he needed space. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Every instinct I had told me that this wasn't just about late nights and work pressures. Something else was going on. That afternoon, I decided to stop waiting and act on the growing suspicion that had been festering inside me for weeks. I couldn't let it go any longer. I had to know the truth, even if it hurt. I had planned to meet a friend for lunch, but instead, I decided to skip it. I felt an overwhelming need to go home early, as if something was calling me. My mind kept telling me that I needed to be there when Mike came back. That feeling in my gut was too strong to ignore. I had to face whatever it was head on. The house was silent when I arrived. It wasn't the silence of a place where people had just left. It was more like the stillness that comes when everyone knows something is about to happen, but they don't want to acknowledge it. I walked through the front door, my heart pounding in my chest. I called out Mike's name, but there was no answer. I figured he might be in the study, like usual, caught up in some work project. But something didn't feel right. I walked quietly through the hallway, each step echoing in the emptiness of the house. The living room door was slightly ajar, and I could hear faint voices from inside. I paused. At first, I thought it was just the TV or a video call. But then, the voices grew clearer. Mike's voice, low and soft, mingled with another voice, a woman's. It was strange. I couldn't place it at first. Maybe it was a colleague or a client. But then the laughter came, and that was the moment everything shifted. The laugh, so familiar, so unmistakable. It was Kate's. My sister. I froze, standing there in the hallway. My stomach turned over. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own sister. And Mike. I could hear them talking, laughing, their voices growing louder. As I stood there, I felt a chill run through me. My hands trembled as I took a step back, my mind racing to make sense of what was happening. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready to confront them, not yet. I needed to gather myself first. But there was one thing I was certain of now: my sister and my husband had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let this slide. I quickly turned around and left the room, retreating to the safety of the kitchen. My mind was spinning. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I couldn't. Not yet. I wasn't ready to face them, not like this. I needed more information. I needed to know how deep this betrayal went before I made my next move. I sat down at the kitchen table, my heart pounding in my chest. It felt like the world was closing in around me, suffocating me with the weight of what I had just heard. My sister, my own sister, was with my husband. I thought I knew them both, but now everything was different. Everything had changed. I glanced at my phone, still on the table in front of me. Should I call Mike? Confront him now? But I knew I couldn't just go charging in without a plan. I needed to be smart about this. I had to think, to strategize. One wrong move, and I'd lose everything. The anger was bubbling inside me, but so was the fear. What if I was wrong? What if I was just imagining things? But deep down, I knew I wasn't. I knew what I had heard, what I had felt. The question now wasn't whether they'd crossed a line, it was how I was going to make them pay for it. I stood up from the table and walked toward the window, trying to clear my mind. The late afternoon sun filtered through the blinds, casting a warm glow on the room. But the warmth didn't reach me. I was cold, distant from everything and everyone. I couldn't look at Mike the same way anymore. I couldn't trust Kate anymore. The truth was out there, and I was going to find it. But I wasn't just going to let it happen to me. I wasn't going to be the victim of this betrayal. No, I was going to take control. I was going to get the answers I deserved, and I was going to make sure they paid for their lies. But for now, I had to wait. I had to bide my time, plan my next move. The real game was just beginning. I didn't go back to the living room. I couldn't. The images in my head were enough to keep me frozen in place. My mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts, but they all kept circling back to one thing: Mike and Kate. My own sister. How could they? What had I missed? How long had this been going on? I tried to breathe, tried to calm myself, but the anger was overwhelming. It wasn't just betrayal, it was a violation of everything I had believed in. I knew that the last thing I needed to do was make any rash decisions. I had to think. I had to plan. If I went in there right now, confronted them both, it would be a disaster. I couldn't risk it. I needed proof. I needed something more concrete than just their voices, no matter how damning they were. I had to be smart. I left the kitchen and went into our bedroom. The room was dimly lit, but it felt colder than it ever had before. Mike's side of the bed was empty, just as I had expected. His things were scattered around the room, his watch on the dresser, his shoes by the closet, his jacket thrown over the back of the chair. But nothing about it felt familiar anymore. Nothing about this room felt like mine anymore. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind still swirling. My phone was still in my hand, but I didn't want to call Mike yet. If I did, I would give him the chance to lie. I wasn't ready to let him talk his way out of it. He'd been doing that for too long already. But I needed to know more. I needed answers, even if it meant digging deeper into places I hadn't dared to go before. I reached for Mike's phone, which he always left lying around. It was a risky move, but I didn't have many options left. If I was going to get to the bottom of this, I had to be willing to take risks. I unlocked it without hesitation. He never thought to set up a password or fingerprint scan. He trusted me that much, or at least, he thought he did. The screen lit up, and I felt a knot form in my stomach. There it was, messages. Dozens of them. I scrolled through them, my breath catching in my throat as I read each one. I didn't need to look for long. It was all there. The sweet, loving messages between him and Kate. The little inside jokes, the flirty comments, the "I miss you" texts that they'd been sending back and forth for weeks, maybe even longer. I felt sick. I had known, deep down, that something was off, but this was something else entirely. Seeing it in black and white, reading their words, made it feel real. This wasn't just a mistake or a one-time thing. This was an affair, a full-blown betrayal. And it wasn't just Mike who had betrayed me, it was Kate too. My hands shook as I went through the messages. They were so careless, so open about it. It was almost as if they didn't care if I found out. Or maybe they were so caught up in their little world that they never stopped to think about the consequences. Maybe they thought I wouldn't figure it out. But I had figured it out. And now it was my turn to make them realize what they had done. I couldn't just sit here and let it happen. I had to act. But I had to be smart about it. The last thing I wanted was to confront them and lose my leverage. No, I needed them to dig their own graves. I needed them to feel the weight of what they had done. And most of all, I needed them to understand that they weren't going to get away with it. I snapped a few screenshots of the messages, just in case. There was no way I was going to let this go. I had the proof now. and I would use it when the time was right. The sound of the front door opening brought me back to reality. I quickly locked Mike's phone and set it back down where I found it. I wasn't ready to face him yet. Not until I had everything in place. But the clock was ticking, and I knew I had to act soon. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Mike's voice, muffled through the walls, was like a distant echo in my ears. He was home. My heart raced, but I couldn't let him see me like this. I couldn't let him know that I knew. I wasn't ready for that confrontation yet. I wasn't ready to show my hand. I quickly gathered my thoughts, took a deep breath, and walked out of the bedroom. I found Mike in the kitchen, putting his briefcase down on the counter. He didn't notice me at first. "Hey," I said, my voice steady but cold. He turned, a smile on his face that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Hey, babe. How was your day?" I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, watching him, trying to figure out how I was going to play this. "How was yours?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He shrugged, his usual nonchalant demeanor in full force. "Busy. Same old, same old. You know how it is." I nodded, but inside, I was boiling. The lies. The secrecy. It was all right there, staring me in the face. But I wasn't going to let him know how much I already knew. Not yet. "I've been thinking," I said, keeping my voice calm. "We need to talk about something." Mike raised an eyebrow, clearly caught off guard. "What about?" I took another deep breath. This was it. The first step in what would be a long, painful process. But I couldn't back down now. "About us," I said. "And about Kate." The words hung in the air like a heavy mist. Mike froze for a moment, his eyes flicking toward me, then back down to the counter where he was absently fiddling with his keys. It was a small, insignificant movement, but to me, it spoke volumes. The hesitation, the tension in his jaw, the way he avoided eye contact, it all made sense now. It wasn't just stress. It wasn't just work. It was Kate. He'd known. He'd known this moment was coming, but he was buying time, hoping it would pass. Hoping I wouldn't ask the question I had to ask. But I had no intention of letting him off the hook. I stepped closer, folding my arms across my chest. "You've been acting strange for weeks, Mike." But I didn't realize how deep it went. "How could you?" He still didn't look up. He sighed, as if preparing for something, but it was too late for that. The truth was already out. I don't know what you're talking about," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. But the lack of conviction in his words made it clear. He was stalling. His face was flushed, his posture rigid. He was trying to keep his cool, but I saw the cracks starting to show. I wasn't going to let him lie to me anymore. Not when I had the proof in front of me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. The screen lit up, and I held it out in front of him. His eyes immediately widened, and his breath hitched. I watched as his face paled, and for a brief moment, I saw something I hadn't expected: fear. "Mike," I said, keeping my voice steady, "this is from your phone. How long has this been going on? How long were you sleeping with my sister?" His face went completely blank, and I could see the gears turning in his head. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to find a way out, but the evidence was right there, staring him in the face. He couldn't escape this. "Sarah," his voice cracked, but he was trying to play it cool. "You have to understand, I never meant for this to happen. Don't you dare make excuses for this," I cut him off, my voice rising. "How could you do this to me? To us?" His eyes darted to the phone, then back to me. His words came out in a stutter, like he was trying to put them together, but they weren't forming any sense. "I never planned for this," he said again, more quietly this time. "I was confused, Sarah. And Kate, she was just there. I didn't mean to hurt you." It was like a slap in the face. The words he was saying, the hollow apology, the excuses, it all sounded so weak. I had known this was coming, but hearing him say it out loud made the betrayal feel so much worse. It wasn't just the affair, it was the fact that he thought he could get away with it. He thought I wouldn't figure it out. I clenched my fists, the rage building inside me. I had been a fool, believing in him, trusting him. And my sister? My own blood? The person I'd shared everything with, how could she do this to me? "Are you telling me you're sorry?" I asked through gritted teeth, stepping closer to him. "You're sorry you got caught?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His hands were trembling, and I could see the fear in his eyes now. He was broken, and the realization that his life was falling apart was starting to hit him. I don't know what to say, Sarah, he stammered, his voice shaky. I messed up. I don't deserve you, I know that. But I'm sorry. I truly am. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone at him and leave. I wanted to make him feel the same pain I was feeling, to show him how betrayed I felt. But I didn't. Instead, I just stood there, staring at him, watching him squirm. The silence between us stretched on, thick and heavy. I couldn't be around him anymore. I needed space. I needed time to process everything. I don't want to hear it, I finally said, my voice cold and emotionless. I'm done. Mike's face fell. His lips trembled as if he was going to speak, but nothing came out. He reached for my hand, but I pulled it away before he could touch me. No, don't touch me, I snapped, backing away from him. I need you to leave. I turned to walk away, my heart pounding in my chest, but he didn't let me go that easily. He followed me, his steps quick and frantic. Sarah, please. Don't do this. I love you. I know I messed up, but I swear I never wanted to hurt you. I spun around to face him, cutting him off. Love me? You love me. My voice was rising again, louder now. You love me, and yet you slept with my sister? You betrayed me with her. Mike stood there, his face a mixture of guilt and regret. But it was too late. I couldn't look at him the same way anymore. I couldn't pretend everything was fine. I said, leave. Now, I repeated, my voice steady but firm. I don't want to see you. Not right now. Not ever. The room fell silent again. I could feel my pulse thumping in my temples, the anger and hurt bubbling inside me. But there was something else there, something I hadn't expected: relief. It wasn't the kind of relief I had imagined, though. It was a different kind. The kind that comes when you finally face the truth and realize you don't need someone who's willing to destroy you. Mike turned and left, his footsteps echoing down the hallway, fading with every step he took. I stood there alone in the middle of the room. I hadn't expected him to leave so easily, but I wasn't going to chase him. The truth had already come to light, and now it was my turn to decide what to do with it. As the door slammed behind him, I felt the weight of what had just happened settle over me. The betrayal was real, but so was my determination. I wasn't going to let this slide. I was going to make them both pay: Mike for his lies and Kate for being the one person I thought would never betray me. And that was just the beginning. The door slammed shut behind him, and for a moment, the only sound I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. Everything felt like it was suspended in time: Mike's retreating footsteps, the silence of the house, and the weight of his betrayal hanging in the air like a toxic cloud. I stood there, frozen, trying to process what had just happened, but all I could feel was the rush of anger and disbelief flooding through me. I should have felt something else: relief, perhaps, or sadness. But all I felt was rage. I could still hear his words echoing in my head. I didn't mean for this to happen. It wasn't the first time I'd heard those words from someone who had wronged me. And, just like all the others, I wasn't buying it. Mike had done this on purpose. And my sister, Kate, she'd done it too. My own flesh and blood. She crossed a line that could never be undone. I needed to take action. I couldn't let them walk away unscathed. I wasn't going to be the victim in this story. I was going to take control, and I was going to make them pay. But how? The answer came quickly, almost like a reflex. If Mike thought he could get away with it, then I would make sure he saw the consequences. And as for Kate, she was the one who'd hurt me the most. My sister. The one I trusted more than anyone. I'd never imagined she would betray me like this. But now I had to ask myself, what had she been telling Mike? How long had she been planning this? The truth was, I didn't know. But I was going to find out. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. My old college roommate, Jenna. She was the kind of person who could track down just about anyone. She had connections. And now I needed her help. Jenna, it's Sarah, I said, my voice calm, despite the storm raging inside me. I need you to help me with something. Of course, she replied, her voice soft but eager. What's going on? I hesitated for a moment, trying to figure out how much I should say. But I didn't need to hold back. I needed to get this done. It's Mike, I said, swallowing the bitter taste in my mouth. And Kate. They've been having an affair. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Jenna didn't say anything for a moment, but I could hear the shock in her breath. Are you sure? She finally asked. I mean, that's heavy, Sarah. I'm sure, I said, my voice hardening. And I need your help to find out everything. I need to know everything about what they've been doing, how long this has been going on, what they've been saying, everything. I'll start digging, Jenna said, her tone now serious. You know I can't promise anything, but I'll do what I can. Just give me a little time. I'll be waiting, I replied, hanging up the phone. I had made the call, but the action didn't come easily. The thought of digging deeper into Mike and Kate's secret lives, made my skin crawl. But I couldn't stop now. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. I took a deep breath, trying to push aside the nausea creeping up my throat. What was I going to do with this information when I got it? I had no idea. But the anger and pain inside me were starting to blur everything else. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoring my dignity, taking back what they had stolen from me. It was about showing them just how wrong they had been to think they could betray me without consequences. My phone buzzed again, snapping me out of my thoughts. I looked down at the screen. It was a message from Mike. I'm sorry, Sarah. Please don't do anything rash. We need to talk. I almost laughed at the irony. He wanted to talk now? After everything that had happened? He didn't deserve another minute of my time. Too late for that, Mike, I thought, but I didn't respond. I set my phone down on the table and walked toward the living room, pacing back and forth. I could still hear his voice in my mind, his weak apologies, his attempts to justify what he had done. But it was all empty. Nothing he said could change the fact that he had crossed a line. He had gone behind my back with Kate, and there was no going back from that. As I walked past the kitchen, I caught sight of the empty space on the counter where Mike had left his briefcase. A wave of disgust washed over me. Everything about him, everything about this house, had become tainted by what had happened. I couldn't look at it anymore. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay here. Not now. Not when everything was falling apart. The night air was cool as I stepped outside, the weight of the day heavy on my shoulders. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay in that house, surrounded by the reminders of Mike's betrayal. I drove aimlessly, not caring about the direction, just needing to be away from everything that had once been my life. Every corner I turned, every street I passed, reminded me of what I was leaving behind. I couldn't help but wonder, how had everything come to this? The love I had for Mike, the trust one had in Kate, all of it seemed like it had been built on lies. How long had they been plotting behind my back? How long had they been laughing at me while I was blissfully unaware? I pulled over at a park, the quiet of the night enveloping me as I sat in the car, staring at the empty playground. It was ironic, really. This park had been the place where Mike and I had gone on our first date, where we had shared our first kiss, where everything had started. And now, it felt like a distant memory. The rage I had felt earlier had subsided, replaced by a deep, gnawing pain in the pit of my stomach. I hadn't expected this. Sure, there had been tension between Mike and me for months, but I never imagined it would lead to something like this. I had always trusted Kate, had always thought of her as my closest friend, my confidant. And now? Now, I couldn't even look at her without feeling betrayed. As I sat there, I thought about the next step. What did I do now? How did I move forward from this? I didn't want to be the victim of their twisted game, but I also didn't want to make a decision out of sheer emotion. I needed to be smart. I needed to be patient. The phone buzzed again. I looked at the screen, expecting another message from Mike, but it was something different. It was Jenna. I've got something. Meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll have all the information you need. I felt a rush of excitement, followed by a wave of dread. Jenna had found something. But what? And what would it mean for me? I couldn't stop now. I had already crossed a line by digging into their lives, and now I had to see it through. I typed a quick reply, I'll be there. I drove home in silence, my mind spinning with questions and possibilities. I couldn't stop thinking about Kate. What was she really after? Why had she chosen this path? I couldn't let this go. If she thought she could destroy my life and get away with it, she was wrong. But I couldn't act on impulse. I needed to gather all the information first. I needed to make sure I knew exactly what I was up against. When I got home, the house felt even emptier than before. Mike's presence was gone, but the echoes of his betrayal still lingered in every room. I locked the door behind me and went straight to the bedroom. I had planned on calling Kate, confronting her, but I stopped myself. No, I couldn't do that yet. I needed to stay calm. I needed to stay focused. I laid down on the bed, staring up at the ceiling. The silence in the house was deafening. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly alone. But that was about to change. The next morning, I met Jenna at the cafe. She was already sitting at a table, a cup of coffee in front of her. When she saw me walk in, she waved me over. "Sit down," she said, her tone serious. "I've got the information." I sat down across from her, my stomach in knots. "What did you find?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jenna opened her bag and pulled out a stack of papers, handing them over to me. I couldn't find everything, but I got some solid leads. I started with Mike. He's been in contact with Kate more than you know. Not just texting. They've been meeting up. I felt a chill run through me as I flipped through the papers. There were dates, times, even hotel names. My sister, my own sister, had been meeting with Mike in secret, lying to me the whole time. And it doesn't stop there, Jenna continued, her voice lowering. I found something else, something you're not going to like. I looked up at her, my heart skipping a beat. What is it? Jenna hesitated, clearly weighing her words. Kate has been getting close to someone else. Someone you wouldn't expect. My mind immediately went into overdrive. Who? I demanded, barely able to keep my voice steady. Jenna paused again. I think she's been seeing Tom, your ex. My stomach dropped. Tom. The man I had dated before Mike. The man who had broken my heart and I had moved on from, or so I thought. The last person I would have expected to be involved in this twisted web of betrayal. This can't be real, I whispered, trying to process what she had just said. It's real, Sarah. I dug deep, and I'm telling you, Kate's been lying to you for a long time. And now, it's like she's playing a game with you, using your past to hurt you even more. I sat back in my chair, trying to gather my thoughts. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This was a full-scale attack on everything I had built. Mike, Kate, and now Tom, all of them were working together, weaving lies and deceit around me. But why? What was the endgame? What did they want from me? I had no answers yet, but I was going to get them. Thank you, Jenna, I said, my voice quiet but filled with determination. You've given me a lot to work with. Now it's my turn. Jenna nodded, her expression softening. Be careful, Sarah. This goes deeper than you think. I stood up, ready to leave, but as I walked toward the door, I realized something. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice. And I was going to make sure that Mike, Kate, and Tom felt the full weight of the destruction they had caused. The drive home felt like an eternity. My mind was racing, processing everything Jenna had just told me. Kate, my sister, had been with Mike for months, lying to me with every smile, every reassuring word. But what hurt more than the affair itself was the fact that she dragged Tom into this. My ex. The one person I thought was long in the past. She had used him, using my own history against me, as if to twist the knife even deeper. I hadn't felt this kind of betrayal before. I'd always been the strong one, the one people could lean on. But now I felt exposed. Vulnerable. And I hated it. I pulled into the driveway, my thoughts swirling. I couldn't stay here. Not in this house, with its memories of Mike and me. Not now that everything had changed. I had to do something. I had to take control. I went straight to the closet and grabbed my bag. No more wasting time. I wasn't going to let this ruin me. I wasn't going to let them win. Not when I had the power to turn the tables. I texted Jenna, I need more information. I need to know everything about Tom and Kate. Who else is involved? As I sat in my car, waiting for her reply, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Mike. "I need to talk, Sarah. Please. We need to figure this out." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. I couldn't believe it. He still thought we could work through this, that we could just talk it out. He was trying to fix something that was beyond repair. "We have nothing to talk about, Mike," I replied, my fingers shaking as I typed. "I know everything. Don't come near me again." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The message was clear. It wasn't just about Kate anymore. It was about Mike too. He had chosen her over me, over everything we had built together. I sat back, staring at the screen, waiting for his response. But nothing came. Not that I cared anymore. I couldn't keep chasing after people who didn't care about me. I had to stop. The only thing that mattered now was making sure I didn't let them destroy me. The next morning, I met with Jenna again, this time at a small cafe near her office. I didn't waste time on pleasantries. As soon as I sat down, I dove straight into the conversation. "What else do you know about Tom and Kate?" I asked, my voice low but firm. "I need to know who else they've involved in this mess." Jenna slid a folder across the table to me. I dug deeper into Tom. "You were right to be suspicious. He's been playing a role in this, but he's not the only one. I found out some things you might not like." I opened the folder, my fingers trembling. Inside, there were photos, receipts, and records of Tom's meetings with Kate, things I hadn't expected to find. But there was something else too, something that made my stomach churn. "Who is he?" I asked, pointing to a photo of a man I didn't recognize. He was standing outside a cafe, smiling as he shook Tom's hand. Jenna leaned in. "This is Adrian. He's a private investigator. Kate hired him a few months ago. He's been watching you, Sarah. I'm not sure what his role is, but he's involved in something shady. Kate didn't just want Mike. She wanted everything. She had a plan." My head spun. A private investigator? My own sister had hired someone to spy on me? I felt a wave of nausea roll over me, but I forced myself to breathe through it. "What else?" Jenna took a deep breath. "I think Kate was planning to get Mike, but she was also setting up for something bigger. She and Tom, there was something more between them too. I'm not sure what it was, but it's clear that they were all working together. Kate had her eyes on more than just Mike's money. She wanted to ruin you, Sarah. Everything about this was about making you feel small, insignificant." I closed the folder and leaned back in my chair. I couldn't digest it all at once. But I was starting to understand. Kate wasn't just trying to destroy my marriage. She was trying to dismantle everything in my life, piece by piece. She had manipulated Mike, dragged my ex into it, and now she was using a private investigator to get inside my head. I wasn't just dealing with a betrayal, I was dealing with a calculated, deliberate attack on everything I cared about. I met Jenna's eyes. "I need to confront her," I said, my voice tight. "I need to make sure she understands what she's done." Jenna hesitated. "Are you sure you're ready for that?" "She's not going to go down without a fight. And remember, she's had a head start. She's been planning this for a while." "I know," I said, standing up. "But I can't sit here anymore. I need to take control. And when I do, I'm going to make sure she never forgets the mistake she made." I walked out of the cafe with a newfound determination. Kate had thought she could destroy me, but she was wrong. She had underestimated me. I wasn't going to be the victim of her schemes. No, I was going to fight back, harder than she ever imagined. The game had changed, and I was no longer playing by their rules. The drive home felt different this time. It wasn't just the physical distance between me and the house, it was the mental distance I had put between myself and everything I thought I knew about my life. No more pretending. No more holding back. The truth had been laid bare, and now it was time for me to take control. I wasn't going to let Kate and Mike continue to think they could walk all over me. I had the power now, and I wasn't about to waste it. As I pulled into the driveway, I realized just how much had changed. The house that had once been a sanctuary now felt like a battlefield. The memories of laughter and shared moments had been tainted. But that didn't matter anymore. This wasn't about the past. This was about making sure the people who had betrayed me understood the cost of their actions. I went inside, locking the door behind me. The silence of the house pressed in on me, but this time, I welcomed it. I was alone. I was in control. And I was going to make sure they felt the weight of their choices. The phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was a message from Mike. Please, Sarah. Let's talk. I don't want to lose you. I stared at the screen for a moment, anger bubbling up in my chest. He still didn't get it. He thought I would just forgive him because he was sorry. But he wasn't sorry. He was scared. Scared of losing everything he thought he could get away with. You lost me the moment you chose her over me, I typed, my fingers steady, despite the storm raging inside me. And you'll lose her too. Because you'll never be able to trust her. Not after everything she's done. I hit send and tossed the phone on the couch. There was no going back now. I was done with Mike. Done with the lies. He had destroyed whatever was left of our marriage, and now it was time for him to see what happens when you betray someone who trusted you. But that wasn't enough. Kate, my sister. She was the one who had done the most damage. She had been the one pulling the strings all along, using Mike, using Tom, using everyone around her to get what she wanted. I couldn't just walk away from that. She had to feel the consequences of her actions, and I wasn't going to stop until I made sure she did. I grabbed my phone again, this time dialing Kate's number. My heart pounded in my chest, and my hand shook slightly as I waited for her to pick up. On the third ring, she answered. Sarah? Her voice sounded strained, as if she had been expecting this. What's going on? Are you okay? I almost laughed. She had the nerve to ask if I was okay. I'm not okay, Kate, I said, my voice cold. Not after everything you've done. There was a pause on the other end, and I could almost hear her thinking of what to say. Sarah, I know you're upset. But you don't understand. Don't give me that bullshit, Kate, I interrupted. You think I don't understand? You've been sleeping with my husband. My husband, Kate. And you've been lying to me, pretending everything was fine. You thought I wouldn't find out, didn't you? She didn't answer right away. I could hear her breathing heavily, and I could picture her standing there, realizing she had no escape. You didn't just hurt me, Kate, I continued, my voice rising. You've destroyed everything. You've destroyed us. And I'm done. I'm done with you. Sarah, please, she begged, her voice breaking. I never meant for it to go this far. I didn't think it would hurt you like this. You didn't think? I shot back. You didn't think it would hurt me? You've been plotting this for months, Kate. You've been manipulating everyone around you, and now you want me to feel sorry for you? No. I'm done with your lies. Please, just hear me out, she said, her voice trembling now. I've made mistakes, and I'm sorry, but this wasn't just about Mike. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I clenched my fists, holding back the urge to scream. She was still trying to play the victim. Still trying to make excuses. I wasn't having it. You think I'm just going to forgive you because you say sorry? I asked, my voice venomous. You're not sorry. You're sorry you got caught. And I'm not going to let you off the hook. I could hear her sobbing softly, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered everything she had done. How she had torn apart my life, my family, all for her own selfish desires. I don't care if you're sorry, Kate, I said, my voice steady again. You don't get to destroy my life and then beg for forgiveness. I'm done with you. Stay away from me. Stay away from my husband. Stay away from everything. With that, I hung up. The weight of the conversation settled on my shoulders. Kate was finally going to feel the consequences of her betrayal. She wasn't going to get away with this, and neither was Mike. But I wasn't done yet. I still had one more thing to do, one more person to confront. I grabbed my keys and walked out of the house. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I knew it had to be done. I wasn't just taking back control, I was taking back my life. And nobody, not Mike, not Kate, not anyone, was going to stand in my way. I didn't know where I was going, but I didn't care. I just needed to move. I needed to feel in control again. Everything had spiraled out of my hands. Mike's betrayal, Kate's lies, the world I thought I knew suddenly falling apart. But today, I was going to take back everything they'd stolen from me. I drove through the city, the streets blending together as I pushed the pedal harder, trying to outrun the thoughts that kept threatening to overwhelm me. But they wouldn't go away. My hands gripped the steering wheel, my fingers tightening with every twist of the road. The truth was there, clear and cold. Mike and Kate had torn apart my life, but they had underestimated me. They thought they could break me, make me weak. But what they didn't realize was that they had made me stronger. I parked outside of Tom's place, my heart pounding in my chest. Tom. The ex I never thought I'd see again. He had come back into my life, not just as a reminder of a painful past, but as another piece in the puzzle of betrayal. The man who had once loved me had joined forces with Kate to destroy me. And now it was time to make him understand the consequences of his actions. I walked up to the door, my footsteps echoing in the empty night. As I stood there, staring at the door, I wondered if he even realized how deep he was in this. He didn't know it yet, but he had already chosen his side. And once I finished with him, he would never forget it. I rang the doorbell, my pulse quickening. A few seconds later, the door opened, and there he was. Tom. The man who had once been my future, now standing before me as nothing more than a pawn in Kate's twisted game. He looked surprised to see me, but there was something else there. Fear. Fear that he might have made a mistake. Sarah, he said, his voice low and cautious. What are you doing here? I didn't answer him right away. I just stood there, looking at him, taking in the man who had betrayed me. He had the same eyes, the same smile, but it wasn't the same person. The man I once loved was gone, replaced by someone who had chosen the wrong side. I'm here because I need to know something, Tom, I said, my voice steady but full of venom. I need to know why. Why would you do this to me? After everything we had, why would you get involved in this mess with Kate? She's the one who destroyed everything. You're just as much to blame as she is. Tom opened his mouth to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. You think I'm going to feel sorry for you, don't you? I stepped closer, my anger bubbling up. You think because we had a past, I'll just let you off the hook? Well, I'm not that person anymore. I've been broken down, yes. But now I'm stronger than I've ever been, and I'm not going to let you get away with it. Tom took a step back, his eyes wide with surprise. But I wasn't done yet. I've already confronted Mike, I continued, my voice now cold and sharp. And Kate, well, I'm sure she's crying her eyes out right now. But you, Tom, you're the last piece of this puzzle. And I'm going to make sure you know exactly what it costs to betray me. What it costs to get involved in something like this. He shook his head, his voice wavering. I didn't mean to hurt you, Sarah. I never wanted. Stop. I cut him off, my tone unrelenting. You made a choice, Tom. You chose her. You chose to hurt me, and now you're going to feel the consequences. You've been a part of this from the beginning, and you can't just walk away from it. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts, and then I hit him with the final blow. I've already made sure that your little secret is exposed. I've made sure that Kate and Mike's affair is out in the open. But you? You'll be next. People are going to know who you really are. People will see you for the man you've become. You'll never be able to look at anyone the same way again. You've crossed a line, Tom. And I'm going to make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. His face paled as the realization sank in. He knew I wasn't bluffing. He knew I had the power to make his life a living hell. And for the first time since I walked through the door, I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. I smiled coldly, savoring the moment. This wasn't about vengeance anymore. This was about justice. This was about making sure Mike, Kate, and Tom knew that there was a price to pay for what they had done to me. You've made your bed, Tom, I said, turning to leave. Now you'll have to lie in it. As I walked away, I could feel the weight lifting from my shoulders. It wasn't over yet, but I had won this battle. I had taken back control. I had made sure that Mike, Kate, and Tom would never forget the consequences of their betrayal. I wasn't broken. I wasn't weak. And I wasn't going to let anyone ever make me feel that way again.